Hey guys, how you going? I hope you're doing okay. Going to read through the full article here. There's a link in the description. Judge temporarily blocks release of Bob Saget's autopsy records. Isn't that a little bit odd? Why has that happened? Well, we'll read through the details in a moment, but to keep things quick for those that can't be bothered to stick around, essentially the family has requested that the details from the autopsy aren't released. They've argued, and a judge has agreed, certainly in a temporary capacity, that having the information in regards to Bob Saget's death, his autopsy, having the details could harm the family, could cause psychological harm. You know, all of these people out there in the world, including myself on the internet, discussing the topic, speculating. I don't know. Apparently, the judge feels that there's an argument to say that it could be harmful to the family. So we'll read through that in a moment, and perhaps what I've just said there will be corrected. But it is odd, isn't it? He died, and we didn't know why he died, and then it was released that he had hit his head. At which point there was speculation, which could be misinformation. Speculation's obviously prone to being incorrect, but there was speculation that perhaps he had fallen and hit his head, and then after that went to bed and died subsequently, not realizing the significant damage he had incurred from the fall. And there would be speculation, or there was speculation as to, well, why would this healthy, active man, why would he have fallen? Would it be like that comedian, the lady that fell over after she told a joke about, well, you know, I'll say joke, but a non-humorous joke about having received the jabs, the booster, jabs for the flu, jabs for the shingles, and then she collapsed and hit her head and fractured her skull. Forgive me, I can't remember her name. Is that what happened to Bob? Did something similar happen to Bob? Did Bob collapse, perhaps due to some of the recent medical interventions that he had received? I'm purposely not being as explicit as I could be, but that was the speculation. And then yesterday, there was information that came out, and forgive me, I've not prepared it, but essentially there was information that came out saying that the damage that Bob Saget suffered was akin to having been hit in the head with a baseball bat, or having fallen 20 or 30 feet. So, you know, very, very significant damage across various parts of the skull, various parts of the brain. So that prompted a new round of speculation, which I had a quick look at. You know, was he murdered? Was he murdered? Did someone literally hit him over the head with a baseball bat? You know, as the medical examiners or the autopsy is suggested would explain the extent of the damage to his skull. Is that what happened? So there has been this bout of speculation along those lines, and then the next thing we know, a mere day later, or perhaps less than 24 hours later, the family has requested that the full details in regards to the autopsy aren't released, and a judge has approved that, albeit temporarily. I don't know, to me, this is odd, this is weird. I don't even know Bob Saget. You know, I'm not with all due respect, I'm not a fan of his. I'm not familiar with his work on the Full House or America's Funniest Videos or whatever it is, or as a stand-up comedian. I'm not familiar with him. I know of him. I know that he's very much loved and very much admired, etc., etc. He's a leading comedian of his generation, but he's not someone that I've been exposed to. But this is of interest to me now because there is so much weirdness in regards to his death. If it was a straightforward death, fair enough, okay, sorry to hear that, Bob, best wishes to your family, okay, life moves on. But when you speculate about could it have been an adverse reaction to any recent medical interventions, or was he literally murdered, or did he suffer a significant fall of 20 foot, 30 foot? If so, how the heck did he get back into bed? Or why the fuck would he think, oh, you know what, that's not a big deal, I'll just go back to bed? If anyone falls 20 foot, 30 foot, they don't think it's no big deal. They know it's a big fucking deal. They know that they have to go to hospital. And Bob Saget, I'm going to presume, is a multi-millionaire, I would presume. He's certainly got enough money to pay for some hospital bills, I would dare say anyway. So there's enough of my ramble. Pointless ramble. There's enough of my pointless ramble. Let's have a look at the article. A judge in Florida on Wednesday agreed with a request from the family of comedian Bob Saget and temporarily prohibited the release of any photos, video, or other records related to the investigation into his death, saying that doing so would cause them irreparable harm. The judge issued the temporary injunction saying that Saget's family would suffer severe mental pain, anguish, and emotional distress if the request wasn't granted. He said the injunction was in the public's interest as he decides whether the family's privacy concerns outweigh any claims for the records to be released. Look, I'm just interrupting myself here, but I personally, as an outsider, as a layman, I wouldn't feel the need for records to be released if he died for a humdrum medical reason. Fine, keep it private, not a worry. But if there's grave concerns about adverse reactions to medical interventions, which perhaps thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, billions of people have recently had themselves, then yeah, I would say there's a public need for information relevant to that situation to be made public. And I would also say that if he was murdered, I would think that would be of public interest. I would have thought. What do I know? Not a lot, typically. Bob Saget, 65 years of age, was found dead January the 9th in a room at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando. He had performed in the area the night before as part of a stand-up tour. The medical examiner said last week that Bob Saget had died from an accidental blow to the head, likely from a backwards fall. An autopsy report showed that Bob Saget had an abrasion on his scalp, a fracture at the base of his skull, fractures around his eye sockets, bleeding between the brain and tissue covering the brain, bleeding between the brain and the tissue covering the brain, as well as bruises to the brain. A toxicology analysis didn't show any illicit drugs or toxins in Bob Saget's body. So look, you know that I'm not a medical examiner myself. I'm not a doctor. But to me, that sounds painful. That sounds serious as fuck. Fracture at the base of the skull, fractures around the eye sockets, bleeding between the brain and tissue covering the brain, bruises to the brain. That's not a simple bump into the kitchen cabinet. That's a significant fall, or, someone yielding blunt force trauma to him. During the course of the autopsy and death investigation, the medical examiner's office and sheriff's office created graphic videos and photos of Bob Saget's body, as well as audio recordings. Such records are prohibited by state law from being released publicly, but some media outlets have already filed requests for them, according to the family's lawsuit. Here's a quote: "Plaintiffs will suffer irreparable harm in the form of extreme mental pain, anguish, and emotional distress if defendants release the records in response to public records requests or otherwise disseminate the records for any other reason or purpose." So yeah, I mean, the family have got lawyers involved to do what they can to ensure that any of the medical examiners and sheriff officers' records, notes, pictures, photos, diagrams, audio recordings are not released to anybody, and the media want it. The media are already asking for that information. Under a Florida law passed following the death of NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt 2 decades ago, records related to autopsies are required to be confidential, with only surviving family members or a government agency as part of its official duties allowed to view them. However, upon showing a good cause, a court can allow records to be viewed or copied under the supervision of the record's custodian. In allowing the records to be viewed, a judge must consider whether it's necessary to evaluate governmental performance and the seriousness of the intrusion of the family's privacy, among other criteria. So there we go. So I know this has been a long video. I've rambled for the first half, and then I've bored you for the second half. Probably bored you for the entire 11 minutes so far. I don't know. It's breaking news. It's a bit of a weird situation to me. It's a bit of a weird situation. Most times someone dies, a celebrity dies, are reasons provided for the death, and that's pretty much that. But not in this case. In this case, everything seemed to have been put to bed, as it were, laid to rest, as it were. No pun intended. But I just get the feeling that this is going to get murkier and murkier. I guarantee, or I don't guarantee, I speculate that the further details will be released. I think I've seen one article from the Daily Mail. I skimmed through it. It was giving more details in regards to the damage to his skull, his brain. People aren't going to let this one go. People are going to want answers. So there's going to be more speculation. I reckon that the details from the autopsy will be released or partially released. And I'm just questioning what the speculation will be at that point. Will there be speculation that he was murdered? Will there be speculation that he fell, he had a significant fall and there was assistance in covering that up? Is there anyone culpable in not seeking adequate medical attention for him? Or is it even something else entirely? Was it due to an adverse reaction of something or other? I don't know. I don't think this one's going to be left alone for a little while.